makes me feel like a man.
You want every team to lose any other game? Sorry. Bailey Zappi just did another dime. You know what? Whoa, time out. Are you kidding? That's what I'm gonna try to drop a mic. Welcome to the Warner Brothas Podcast. My name is Keenan, joined by my brother Kyle, joined by Timmy. How are you guys doing? Obviously a wonderful weekend of football. How did you guys enjoy it?
Had a good time. I mean, I enjoyed most of the games. Half the games were kind of trash, hard to pick them. A lot of teams showed up. A lot of teams did not show up.
Yeah, fair. Very fair. Kyle, how about you?
Yeah, this weekend very much felt like Christmas Eve to next weekend's Christmas. I just was anticipating next weekend the entire day. I anticipated the games being a little better, but I mean, it wasn't terrible. It was, you never know what you're getting with week 18. So,
yeah, there's so many backups that play. There's so many games that people are sitting, but then there's games where people need it and matter. When half the teams need it or half the side of the team matters, like you have some bench players, some starters. So it's definitely difficult. It's definitely a weird week to like bet or do anything like that on. But without further ado, I know, Timmy, you got yourself a question here. You got something you want to propose to us. So let's have you just start in on that.
All right. So in 2020, a COVID year, the Pittsburgh Steelers started out the season 11-0, and everybody was on their tail about them being a fraudulent team. They ended up finishing that year 12-4 with a first-round exit in the playoffs to the Browns, led by Baker Mayfield. Now,
Yep, shout out Bake Show.
I want to compare this team to this year's Philadelphia Eagles, who started out the season 10-1. Kind of have fraudulent offense, kind of worried about the team at least, had a really tough end to their season, and then in the first round of the playoffs, they will face Baker Mayfield and the Buccaneers. So, could history repeat itself?
Yeah.
What do you guys think?
I'm not going to give a definitive on that yet because I'm a little still up in the air and if I feel it 100%. But history is absolutely on the line and absolutely available to repeat itself. 100%, it is all there. The Eagles just got dog walked by the Giants, and that was a game that they wanted to play in. I understand they were missing people. Then you have A.J. Brown, who's hurt. He might not be able to play. We don't know yet. Devontae Smith banged up. Devontae Smith, DeAndre Swift, Jalen Hurts. The whole entire team's banged up. The defense is not good. So this is definitely a spot where the Buccaneers should not be taken lightly, and I don't think anybody around the globe thinks that they are. So easily could be.
yeah, I feel a few ways about this game. I mean, it's one of the games I'm having the most problem capping for this weekend, honestly. But I have a problem with it getting the Monday night slot because I think it's actually the worst game that we got the entire weekend. I think that should be the first game of the whole weekend, the 4:30 slot on Saturday. Wish we would have got Green Bay and Dallas on Monday night. But, I mean, look, the Buccaneers did everything they could to lose yesterday versus the Panthers, who are probably the worst team in the league. Like, they did everything to not win that game. I mean, they only scored 3 field goals. The Panthers actually coughed up 2 scores. I think one of their touchdowns got called back, and then they fumbled on the goal line. They just did everything they could to lose because, they're the Panthers. So, honestly, like if the Buccaneers win that game like 24-0 or 24-7, I'd probably be ready to pick them over the Eagles. But they didn't look any better than Philly has looked over the last couple of weeks. And, of course, they lost to the Saints just last week as well in a game they could have put the division away. So, I'm not feeling good about either one of the Eagles or the Bucs right now. So, I'm having trouble analyzing that game as of right now.
It's one that's interesting. The Bucs have obviously been playing better as of late than the Eagles. I believe the Eagles are 1-5 in their last 6. The Buccaneers are 4-1 in their last 5. So you're right, though. They're coming off of a win where they were pedestrian at absolute best. They just didn't play a good game at all. It was 9-0. but they still have been, still collectively have been playing better than the Eagles. So, but at the same time, Eagles do have more wins. They went to the Super Bowl last year, played in that game, was hung tight with the Chiefs the entire game. So it's going to be interesting to see. But I like the comparison, Timmy, a lot. It's definitely very, very interesting. So we have one of two things. I have something that I have a question for the playoffs. I can either ask that now, or we can talk a lot of week 18 stuff and then go into the playoffs. It depends on what you want to go.
Let's hear the question.
All right. Well, it's a list, and then basically the question is how much you guys agree, how much you guys don't agree with the list. So I was going through, and Trevor Lawrence got me thinking about it, because I was like, where would I rank now Trevor Lawrence after this season in the NFL quarterback hierarchy? Because unlike any other sport, one season in the NFL can make your rate go up and down drastically. I mean, Lamar going into his unanimous MVP season, people would have been like borderline-ish top 10 because he didn't really have it at that point. And then he came into that season, you're like, okay, is he the best quarterback in the league? And so, like, obviously one season changes so much. But halfway through it, I was like, you know what? I don't want to really talk about some of these quarterbacks that aren't going to be in the playoffs. So I ranked the 14 quarterbacks that are in the playoffs from 14 to 1. I'll give it to you now, and then you guys can kind of adjust. My rating wise, kind of, obviously credentials, resume, and all that kind of stuff matters, and also how you're playing now matters too. So both of them mixed in, I would say like 80% of who you are, 20% of how you're playing, I would say would be kind of what I mix, maybe 85-15-ish. So here we are. At 14, I don't think it's a conversation. It's Mason Rudolph. 14 is Mason Rudolph. He's the worst quarterback playing. 13, I have Joe Flacco. So Joe Flacco is playing very good football, over 300 yards a game. He does turn the ball over a lot. He has 8 interceptions over his 5 games. I have everyone's 5-game like yards, touchdowns, turnovers, and record here listed down. But Joe Flacco would be 13 for me right now. Anyway, and feel free to interrupt me at any point. 12 right now, I do have Baker. He's been playing really well, but that was also who he is, and the quarterbacks that are above him, you have a lot. There's one that I could switch with him, but it's interesting, and it's 11. I have Tua. So Tua Tagovailoa at 11. At 10, I've got Jared Goff. At 9, I have Jordan Love. At 8, I have Jalen Hurts. 7, I have Brock Purdy. 6, I have CJ Stroud. 5, I have Dak Prescott. 4, I have Matthew Stafford. 3, I have Josh Allen. 2, I have Patrick Mahomes. And 1, I have Lamar Jackson.
I think the only change that jumps out immediately to me is maybe I would flip Goff with Love. Goff did win the division. I would say in large part to how he handled the offense, really. I mean, obviously they got playmakers all over, but him winning the division, granted Jordan Love is emerging, certainly, but that would be my only change. But I don't really have any disagreements. Maybe that Baker Tua one's interesting. You could make a case for Baker. I mean, obviously he played like shit yesterday and didn't play great last week. But I mean, hey, you want to say you mentioned earlier like Trevor Lawrence skeptic, like Tua's one where I'm just like, all right, he'll have a great game, but then I'll see him do something where I'm like, man, I don't know about this guy at all. So yeah, I mean, I can definitely make the case like you did for him to be outside of the top 10. That's really interesting.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I definitely agree with the fact that Tua and Baker, I mean, as I said it, I was like, you could argue Baker is ahead of this guy at 10, like at 11. But yeah, the thing about Tua is he is a guy who is too good to completely pass on and absolutely should be a starter in the NFL, but you're not sure is good enough if you have to give him a big time quarterback contract. But you also don't want to just give him up because you're not going to find too much that's just better instantly. So he's in that weird middle ground of quarterbacks where you're like, do we pay him? Do we not pay him? Because if we do pay him, I don't know if he gets us there. If we don't pay him, he might be the best quarterback option we possibly can get. So he's one of those weird in between quarterbacks that if I'm in Miami front office, those are the tough ones that I don't want to. That's hard to make. Timmy, what are your thoughts?
Can I give you a...
Oh, sorry, Kyle, you go.
Can I give you a Tua comparison?
I love comparisons, absolutely.
It's going to be a little different because he's more athletic than this quarterback I'm about to name. His arm talent's better. And he's probably just all around better, but he reminds me of this quarterback in the fact that he does not go off script well. When everything sticks to the script, he's great. When you can't stick to the script, it gets a little fuzzy, but he might win you a lot of games, and that's Jimmy G. I think Tua is like the more athletic, better version of Jimmy G in that aspect that, if you got to ad-lib, if you got to create, that's where it really gets ugly. That's where the picks come from. That's where these boneheaded decisions come from. Whereas you stick to the system, Jimmy and Tua, it's going to look pretty damn good. You're going to look like a contender every once in a while. In Jimmy G's case, he did lead some contending teams, but he definitely has his limitations, and I think Tua's in that same class as far as the limitations go.
Jimmy's peak is Tua. If I had to say, kind of, and that's not like the highest of peaks, but Jimmy's peak is Tua, and their floors are semi-similar. So I actually like that comparison. But Timmy, what did you think list-wise? Would you change anything up and down movement?
I think if we're going to have Purdy at 7, that's kind of where I would fit Jared Goff in, and then have Jalen Hurts and Jordan Love flip-flop maybe, or keep them where they are, honestly. But to me, Jalen Hurts without the tush-push is way further down this list. You're taking away his rushing ability, or to score touchdowns at least. He just really hasn't looked like the quarterback we saw last year. Last year you'd probably have him top 4, 100%, but now it's just not even close. Jared Goff has his bad games, but so does Jordan Love, and that's why I would probably have Goff ahead of Love. It's just because we've seen Jordan Love's worst, and it's they lose to the Giants, whereas actually Goff lost to Jordan Love, so I can't really make that argument anymore. But I don't know. I would have Jared Goff at 8. And then the other two fall down a slot.
No, I don't disagree with that at all. To be honest with you, I think the Brock Purdy, Jordan Love, Jared Goff, Jalen Hurts, you could kind of organize that in a lot of ways. If you had Jordan Love at the bottom because of the fact he's young, don't know what he's going to be like in big spots, okay. If you had him higher because you see the talent that he has right now, I would be okay with that. To me, I think the top 6 are definitive. The only guy I guess you could probably talk to me about would be Brock Purdy, possibly switching with Stroud, just because obviously Brock's been playing really well. But again, I just think Stroud, looking at him and how he plays, is better. I think if Stroud was on this San Francisco 49er team, I'd have even more confidence in him than I would with Brock Purdy. And not that Brock Purdy is bad at all. Just the way kind of Tua, when you go off script with him, Tua's kind of can be iffy. With Brock Purdy, so far, it seems like when he kind of has to go truly off script, it hasn't really worked out well. Where CJ Stroud, we've seen him have to go off script. We've seen him have to make a lot of comebacks in a different kind of situation without a great offensive head coach. DeMeco Ryans is a very good defensive head coach. You see what he's done already. So. But what were you saying, Kyle?
I would have to say, just to boost Goff up, I mean, you did say the majority of this list is based off accomplishment more than play right now. Goff being in a Super Bowl and the last 2 seasons that Goff has had, I mean, I think he has to be considered for the top 6. I would have him not necessarily ahead of Stroud, but definitely ahead of Purdy. I would have him ahead of that group. I would have Goff at least at 6 or 7. Stroud, you can put wherever, really, because, I mean, we just don't know. We really don't know. I mean, looks good so far. but he's got that Cleveland defense. I mean, look at Lamar. Lamar's looked great in the regular season. Postseason, not so much. And I don't think any of us would necessarily call Lamar not clutch either or anything like that. Like sometimes your luck just kind of runs out. I mean, look at Peyton Manning, right? But Purdy, I could slide down a few spots. That's really all I'd say. Like in general, that list is pretty decent. But listening to Tim's explanation with Goff and that group in general and what he said about Jalen Hurts, and maybe he is getting more smoke this way, but I wonder why. Like from what I've seen a lot of people just do the whole like, oh, Purdy wouldn't be this or that without his supporting cast. Like, no shit. That's what makes the Niners great is the fact that they do have an all-star cast, right? Why isn't Hurts getting that same, like he didn't get that same hate last year, I feel like. A lot of people praised Hurts in that situation. Now that he's playing bad, people are saying he's hurt. I don't really hear people shitting on him too much, but aside from Eagles fans, I should say. Eagles fans, no one's harder on their own team than Eagles fans, but I feel like Hurts, like he's got a ton of talent around him, just like Purdy does. Like, why doesn't he get that same rip that Purdy does? People seem a little quicker to hate on Purdy. Of course, they're the number one seed. I get it, but
no, there's quarterbacks that people love to hate on. There's quarterbacks that people give absolutely massive passes to. Patrick Mahomes, as we've talked about, gets complete passes when sometimes he should be graded higher than other people because of how great he is. Justin Herbert's another quarterback that doesn't really get talked about like he should get talked about. But then someone like Lamar Jackson,
he gets more passes than anybody.
But Lamar Jackson can do
like,
anything, and he's gonna get talked about. It's because there's so many Lamar skeptics that are like, "Oh, he's not quarterbacky." If you guys saw that conversation with from the Fox Sports lady, but like Lamar Jackson, someone like that. Josh Allen is like 70, probably 80-20, where like his Josh Allen skeptics are as loud as can be, but the Josh Allen supporters are just more of them. Because people like sometimes he can't do any wrong. Dak Prescott's another one who, whenever he does something bad, he's going to get killed for it. Like Dak gets killed a lot, and you're right. I think
that comes with being the quarterback of the Cowboys.
That
in Dak's case,
he gets killed, but he also gets praised, and that literally comes from the star on his helmet. If he was wearing any other helmet, then it wouldn't be the same way. So yeah, absolutely. And then we've got someone like Jalen Hurts, where we don't know if last year was a trend or a blip. Like, I mean, in his starting, it will take his 3 starting years. 2 years ago in 2021, 16 touchdowns, 9 picks, 87 quarterback rating. Last year, 122 touchdowns, 6 picks, 101 quarterback rating. This year, 23 touchdowns, 15 picks, 89 quarterback rating. So we went back to what he pretty much was in his first year fully starting. Is this just a down year and was he actually hurt? Or is this just who he was and he had a perfect storm of a great coaching staff, first year with A.J. Brown, had a great running game with Miles Sanders, who ran great last year, Devontae Smith being there, Dallas Goedert, everybody being healthy. Like, was it all just that together, or was it actually that Jalen Hurts is very special? We'll see. So Jalen Hurts next year is who, like, I'm really interested to see, and we'll see if people start to give him some of that true quarterback criticism and true quarterback grading on that quarterback curve that he should be graded on right now. But speaking of someone else, I'm going to let you guys sound off on Trevor Lawrence if you guys have stuff you want to say about Trevor, unless Kyle, you had something to say prior.
I just want to respond to Hurts. I just want to say I do think it's a little bit of both. I do think he's certainly grown since his rookie year.
Yeah.
But last year, yeah, I mean, they had an easy schedule and they had everybody healthy on offense. Like, they did not really suffer any injuries, major injuries that I can think of on offense. Whereas this year, of course, they're banged up. I mean, that's what you should do. I mean, look, we compare to Brady all the time. I compare Hurts a lot to the early Russell Wilson years. Like, he had a ton of talent around him, and that only made his job easier. And he grew into the quarterback that once upon a time was elite. And Hurts can be on that. Hurts is still mad young. Like, he's still, 24, 25? Like, he's still got
absolutely
years ahead of him to grow. And I believe he will. I think he'll make that leap. But no, I don't think he's in a position to where he can handle adversity well compared to someone like a Stafford, right? Or a prime Stafford. You know what I mean? An elite quarterback or a Mahomes even. I say Mahomes, but he's not really handling adversity well at all right now. But you get my point here. A better quarterback can make up for mistakes. Hurts really ain't at that position yet. But he is athletic and he can make up with it with his feet. So he's still got that going for him.
It's weird because, like, for the totality of games, I don't fully feel like he can elevate at that level yet. But if you have one drive at the end of the game, I feel oddly confident in him. Like, it's weird. Like, he has like this kind of like in between.
He's a baller.
Like, so like, I said this right after the Chiefs win when they just, I was like, he just find, or in the Bills win too. It's like he just finds a way to win. So he's just a winner, and he's a great football player. But he needs to become a great quarterback. It was the same thing that with Lamar. Lamar, when he came into the league, was a great football player and a good quarterback. I think now he's a great quarterback plus being a great football player. So rings in between both. But where do you guys want to go next? I'll let you guys pick where we're going.
You mentioned Trevor Lawrence.
I figured you guys wanted to talk about this guy. Boy.
I mean, I think there's a misnomer here as far as like my thing has never been Trevor Lawrence. It's been really the Jaguars as a whole. I don't think they've been crisp. I mean, last year they were the definition of feast or famine. You know what I mean? And they kind of limped into the playoffs. Like they backed their way into the playoffs actually. And they really only win that Chargers game because their coaches, or the opposite coach, was Brandon Staley. As far as Trevor Lawrence goes, though, actually, let me keep it with the Jags. Let me just keep it consistent. I don't think I picked the Jags for the division before the year. And if I did...
You did, but you picked them by default.
But I didn't give them a good record. I think I gave them like 9-8, which I think that's what they ended up with. And I remember saying
had
after
them
that
at
stretch,
10-7.
that London
Sorry.
stretch, like, damn, that's tough
10-7.
wins. 10-7? 10-7, so it was a game off.
Damn near same thing.
It was a game off. I just remember saying after that rough stretch they had during the season that I was impressed with them. I was impressed with the wins because I think they won 4 straight at one point in a very difficult part of the schedule where you could conceivably say 1-3, 0-4. And I was impressed, but I remember saying to you guys, like, why am I not as confident in them as even a Miami or a Buffalo? Like, so this has been consistent really since last year because I don't think they've grown up as a team, even with that playoff appearance. And Trevor Lawrence, if we're going to go back to him, Keenan, I remember his rookie year, obviously under Urban Meyer, he faced the Pats, and I was like, man, like I didn't see anything from him that game, like at all, that made me understand why he was number one. You know, I don't watch a lot of college football, and we've talked about on here how he was compared to Andrew Luck, the best prospect since this or that. I just remember being like, you know, back when we were doing just audio podcasts, being like, yeah, I can see like he's athletic, but I don't see what all the hype's about. But, you know, that's a very small sample. And then obviously as these games of importance have risen, I still haven't seen specialness, you know, that you see from Lamar. You don't see, you know, elite talent. You see tools. For sure you see tools. He's definitely athletic. He's definitely got arm talent. He's got a quick release. But I've never seen that like, okay, we got a dog here. Like you said about Jalen Hurts. Okay, we're down 6. We got a score here. We're down 3, It's go time. Like I haven't seen that with Trevor Lawrence yet. So I think he's pretty good. I just don't think he's what he's been hyped to be. That's my only thing. And you know, you saw yesterday what you've gotten under Trevor Lawrence and Doug Peterson. It's just not consistent, and that's where they are, and that's fine. But you know, just not what he was hyped to be so far. But it's only year 3.
Timmy, I'll let you speak before I go on.
I got 2 things. One, social media, like TikTok, has now caught on to this of people saying maybe Trevor Lawrence isn't that dude. I just want to give credit to Kyle because he's been saying it for probably about 2 months now, where he just didn't have the feeling that he was the dude, and then all it took was them missing the playoffs against a team that they should have beat easily to really convince people on social media. So credit to Kyle. My other thing is I am so confused about what the Jaguars are going to do when it comes time to extend him. What's he going to get paid? Is he even going to be there? Like, I would expect them to re-sign him. But, like, if I'm the Jags and we get another year of this next year, I don't know. Like, that doesn't look like the quarterback that's leading our future for the next 10 years. So I'm just really confused.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see where they go on him, because next year is going to be this is going to be his big, obviously the biggest season probably of his career until maybe later on this season, but probably this could be the biggest season of his career. It's going to be the money-making season. It's going to be the legacy-ish defining season of kind of, I mean, you can always change and rewrite your history because you have plenty of years to play. But will people write you off? Are you going to be kind of labeled that bust? Are you going to prove to everybody else of what you are? Can you handle the pressure? Or are you going to crumble under it? Because if he was even talked about like Baker Mayfield coming out when he went number one, like pretty good quarterback, or Jared Goff, pretty good quarterback. He definitely could be a franchise guy. We think he could be a Pro Bowler one day. Can make all the throws. We'll see how he develops in the league and see how he can change with the speed. We'd probably be like, Trevor Lawrence, we've got to talk about him a little bit, but he definitely needs to progress and get better in the offseason. You can't say you're a top 5 prospect with the greats of the greats, and then you saw what John Elway was instantly. You saw what Peyton Manning was instantly, even though his rookie season was tough, but you saw what Peyton Manning was. You saw flashes. You saw what Andrew Luck was instantly. He's not a number 1 pick, but you see what CJ Stroud was. You even saw it with Burrow. Like, I know he got injured first year, but he was 13 touchdowns, 5 picks, and the second that he came in the next year, coming off an injury, took his team to the Super Bowl, and we've seen it ever since with Burrow. His problem's just been a little bit of injury, but you see it with all these guys that are that guy. You're like, okay, we know it early. Even if they're not putting up the stats, you just see it in the play. And with him, unfortunately, with Trevor thus far, we haven't seen it in the play, not just the stats. The stats don't have to wow me for me to know that you're good. That stats kind of come from situations. Like Brock Purdy doesn't always wow me, but the stats are amazing. The stats are wowing stats. But Brock Purdy, he does definitely. I'm not trying to make it sound like he doesn't, because he plays that system perfectly. And sometimes he'll make a throw where you're like, oh my goodness. But then other times it's like, okay, there's a little bit more that could be had there. Just a little bit with him. But it's Brock plays his system great. So I don't want to say anything bad about him or anything. But Trevor just needs to, if he's going to be hyped up like that guy, he needs to play like that guy.
I got a few responses.
Okay.
One, I think one thing that hinders him, besides the OC, I think their OC is terrible. They fired their defensive coordinator, funny enough, out of all things. Doug Peterson's got to be in the hot seat next year. I don't care if he's got a Super Bowl ring. That ring looks worse and worse the years removed from it. And, of course, that happened at the expense of mine and Keenan's team. So it just feels worse and worse the farther we get. Doug Peterson,
Tom Brady's
aside
best
from that
run.
year, hasn't been really good. He's been about average. Yeah, they put up over 600 yards of that game and found a way to lose, thanks to Matt Patricia, who, you know, if you want to bet against the Eagles, there you go, Matt Patricia.
Bill Belichick sat Malcolm Butler now, too. Don't get me started on that. Oh boy,
we should have won that game. Should have won that game without Malcolm Butler, to be honest. But that's a conversation for a whole other day. But could have. But Doug Peterson, like, I think you got a lot of talent on that roster, and Trevor Lawrence for sure has to be better. But if you've got a coach in there like Jim Harbaugh, you're looking at a contending team, and they're probably not going to fire Doug. They would have already. Black Monday's actually been pretty quiet aside from Arthur Smith and Ron Rivera. But, you know, the fact that they're probably going to miss out on Harbaugh's probably going to come in this year. But, I mean, they could – I don't know who will be on the market next year, but you give that team a coach, you give Trevor Lawrence a coach, I'm buying stock in him. And, you know, it's almost a good thing because I think after this year, that star will dim a little bit. That hype will dim a little bit. I think he would be worth his next contract. I think he's someone who would come back to bite you, not in the competitive sense, but just in the talent sense. I don't think we're talking about someone like Jay Cutler here. This could be someone like Stafford. I won't call Stafford a late bloomer, but he found most of his success later in his career. So maybe Trevor Lawrence, we're talking about year 5, 6, 7, where he really starts to get it. So I'm not too worried about him long term. But right now, he's not one of. Yeah, No, I think he's still going to be good. I just don't think he's that guy right now. But am I buying stock in him long term? Yes, I am. Right now, no, he's not, what Andrew Luck was or, a few of these other guys. But and then to answer, the other question about his contract, I mean, I'll let Brandon Petty tell it on Thursday when he joins us, Jaguars fan himself, but he was he was obviously all upset yesterday, and he was like, "Man, honestly, I don't know if Trevor Lawrence is worth $50 million." And I did not let him expand on that. I told him save all that for Thursday, but he led with that. He led with that.
I love it.
So I'll just say that.
I love it. Okay. So do you want to start? I mean, not that we're going to give our picks right now. Did you want to go into our bold predictions from our predictions from Week 12 season awards, how they compare to what we actually thought right now, or did you want to talk any more about any of the games this weekend?
You know what?
We can
we'll
talk
touch
about.
on. I mean, if we
Miami,
talk about
Buffalo?
like the games, if we talk about the games. Yeah, if we talk about the games coming up, I think we'll kind of de facto like talk about some of the games from this past weekend.
Okay.
Because we can give a mini preview without getting into predictions.
Yeah.
Let's do that. Let's. So, how do you guys feel about these matchups? I already talked about Philly and the Bucks. How I'm not really in love with that matchup. Granted, that should be an entertaining game anyway. I'd just rather have it 4:30 on Saturday. Which, by the way, fun fact: all of Houston, all of their playoff games have been played at that 4:30 slot. They've never played in another game, at least on wild card weekend. Divisional weekend, obviously they played at a different time slot, but wild card weekend, always the 4:30 slot. So, but how do you guys feel about the rest of the matchups? Which matchup are you looking most forward to? Do you have any gripes with the schedule like myself? Tell me.
You, Tim.
I feel like most of the games that we're getting they might not be like you said, how the Bucks and Eagles kind of sounds like a down game, but at least there's like history or something, where like I brought up the Steelers and in Baker Mayfield. There's at least that aspect to it. The Lions play the Rams, so Matt Stafford gets to go back to Detroit. Homecoming game. The Packers get the Cowboys, so Mike McCarthy gets a homecoming game. Every game kind of has some sort of reason that you would want to watch it other than it just being a playoff game. So I'm excited for every single game. I think every single one can be interesting. I think I'm excited most for the Lions-Rams game just because I really think both of those teams have a shot going to the Super Bowl. So whichever one makes it out is going to have, momentum, hopefully, and maybe they carry it right up to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, that would be one of the games I'm most interested in. I kind of like a lot of these games. Take Pittsburgh Buffalo out of it, unless Buffalo kind of just rolls over, and because I don't think TJ Watt's playing, and if that's the case, I really don't see how Pittsburgh has a way of winning that game. But you never know. The Bills always can find a way to try to build something up. So that game could be more interesting. They have they're not as bad as the Cowboys in like this era, but they can Bills their way out of some wins. So that one could be a little interesting. A lot of these games have a bunch of cool storylines to it. So you have how far can CJ Stroud go, or how far can Flacco go? What's the better story there as a quarterback? Tyreek Hill going to KC to play him in the playoffs. They already played earlier, but it was in Germany. Can Mike McDaniels and Tua Tagovailoa get this offense going against that Chiefs defense? Obviously, hold on.
We can still see him.
It was fun while it lasted. Rest in peace to Keenan.
Hold on just a moment.
Rest
the power went
peace,
out. But since I'm on
it's glow in the dark.
It's actually kind of scary.
Since I'm on my phone, I can still be seen and talk. So.
We can tell.
Hold on. Hold on.
Spot. Go rolling.
Keenan looks like he's got like a black light fucking wall or some shit.
This is so annoying.
Or some laser.
Damn wind. But I was getting in a bag too. Yeah. I was gonna say
You gotta grab like a couple phones or some shit.
Hold on. Yeah, but then I'm not gonna have
Are you
mic
on your
quality.
iPad?
I'm not gonna have mic quality at all. It's just gonna be.
Because you could use the iPad flashlight.
That's true.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
Didn't it come back like kind of quick last time?
So hold on just a
Power
second.
There we go. See?
There you go. Look at that. Tim called it.
Yeah.
Tim,
You gotta speak it into
Timmy.
existence.
Tim summoned the light.
Timmy.
Oh.
Nope.
Oh.
Come on, can I
Maybe you
change my
went dark,
mic
so we
now?
thought you
Like,
lost it again.
dope. Anyways, all right. Let me see where I want to exactly start in with this. So, okay. Green Bay is playing Dallas going into that Green Bay game. Obviously, you have the history of the Des Cottick game. You have the Jared Cook game. So Green Bay and Dallas have a lot of history there as well. And then, obviously, if it'd be cool if the Lions won the Super Bowl this year, just because like that would be the definition of a trade that went perfect for both teams. You had in the short term, you had the Rams. They had a better chance, obviously, with Stafford than they won the Super Bowl with Stafford. In the long term, Jared Goff was able to get the Lions to the Super Bowl there. You don't know if you can with Stafford because of the picks and everything that were accrued because Jared Goff was on a lesser team. So a lot of very, very interesting storylines this weekend, and I'm here for all of them. So I'm excited. I think the most underrated game that could be really good is Browns and Texans. And it's just because I think CJ Stroud could be, if he can go into Cleveland, into the dog pound that's going to be riled up.
They're playing at home.
And get a W. Oh, sorry. Oh, yeah, sorry. They are playing at home. My bad. Sorry. They have the better record. The Browns have the better record. But yes, they're the division winner. So they're going to be at home. That makes this even better. Oh, boy. And that defense doesn't travel the same. Oh, boy. Yeah, that's going to be fun. I can't wait for that. But yeah, so this weekend I'm feeling great about all the games.
Yeah, I can't wait.
Every game.
It's a great slate. I actually think it's probably the best round of matchups we could have gotten. Maybe replacing Pittsburgh, but Pittsburgh's done well enough. And of course, like you said, like TJ Watt, we're probably not going to have him. That makes that game that much more intriguing. So that by default might be the least intriguing. Actually, you can make the case for them being the 4:30 slot on Saturday. But I think that Browns-Texans game is in the running for best game of the weekend. I'm disappointed about Chiefs-Dolphins for a number of reasons. Number one being the Peacock only. Me and Tim talked about this earlier, actually, when I ran into him. And it just sucks. Like, if Miami had their full squad, or at least didn't even get half as injured as they have these last few weeks, like just saved a couple of guys, this game's that much more intriguing. It's going to be anywhere.
The offense
you would think that, but
it's going to
be anywhere between -5 and 10 degrees. So it's going to be a game that's very much in the Chiefs' favor, especially the way Pacheco's been running. But the Dolphins will be able to run the ball.
Oh, I just meant injury-wise. I just meant injury-wise. Like, Raheem Mostert should be back. Jalen Waddle should be back. I just meant injury-wise. Because defensively, losing Bradley Chubb might be the end of the season. But offensively, they should be fully healthy, which would make them more
they're at least going to be able to run. I don't know. I'm very skeptical. I was very ready to pick against the Chiefs this weekend, and everything's falling their way for me not to pick against them. But Miami weirdly still has more than a snowball's chance. But again, then you've got the weather where it's terribly cold. So I don't know. That game is going to be very much interesting, much like the rest of the slate. Green Bay, Dallas. I don't think it's going to happen, but imagine if they got upset. We'll just say, imagine if Dallas got upset by Green Bay again and they broke their hearts again. Imagine that. And, it's on the table slightly.
It's on the table.
Slightly. It's like...
it's on the table.
I don't know. I won't talk about it too much because we'll get into all this on Thursday. But and then Eagles-Bucks, like I shit on the game earlier just because like they're just not playing their best. But I talk all the time about chaos. That game's going to be the definition of chaotic, I believe. So as much as that game might be ugly, I'm ready for what that.
About as chaotic as it was for the lights
Yeah,
to go out
exactly.
here.
Exactly. So I'm actually ready for that game. I do.
It was about that chaotic where it
Yeah.
just blacks out.
No, I'm ready for that game. I do want to see it. I don't want to see it on Monday night. And I actually wish we had back-to-back triple headers instead of a Monday night game. But I'm ready for it.
Yeah. So I'm interested to see what your guys' awards are comparatively to like now for what we had preseason. So preseason, I can read. Do you want me to read off as we go through per each team about who had what? So or per person, I should say. So Timmy, go through your awards right now, and then I will afterwards say what your awards were.
You want me to run through all
So
of them?
Defensive Player of the Year, what do you got?
For Defensive Player of the Year, I have.
Yeah, go defense. We'll go all the same.
Okay. For DPOY, I have TJ Watt.
Okay. And Kyle, who do you have for Defensive Player of the Year?
I'd agree with that. I would have TJ Watt as well. Honorable mention to Myles Garrett. Honorable mention to DaRon Bland of the Cowboys. Yeah. But overall, I'd give it to TJ. Him and JJ Watt are in a league club with, I think, 19 plus sacks. They're the only players to do it multiple times. Is that the stat I saw? So you got to kind of give it to them just based off that. How those two guys grew up in the same household and were both just elite pass rushers, I don't fucking know, but props to them.
How TJ Watt might be better than JJ Watt's crazy. Like, we don't know yet. Like, I'm going to give it more time, but, like, how TJ Watt might be better than JJ Watt is crazy. But, so for me, personally, my guy that I do have DaRon Bland. It was between him and Max Crosby for me. I think TJ Watt is right there too. Myles Garrett's right there too. You can make even a case a little bit for Micah Parsons. Like, there's a lot of people who you could have a big case for. For me, it is DaRon Bland. You're filling in for Trevon Diggs, and you do more than just fill in. You become a guy who people are targeting a lot. You've got 5 defensive touchdowns this season. I think you've got 10 picks on the season. Like, it is such an incredible season for a corner, especially 9 picks on the season. It's a very incredible season for a cornerback. So I leaned around Bland, but TJ Watt absolutely could win it. No problems here, no questions asked. There's 5 people that could win it that I'm okay with. Alrighty, so next we'll go to Offensive Player of the Year. Who do you guys have at Offensive Player of the Year? Timmy, we'll start with
Offensive Player of the Year, I have Christian McCaffrey.
I have the same. I have CMC.
Kyle, how about you?
I probably would have picked Tyreek had he finished the season a little stronger. He got injured. He got banged up. I actually thought he was probably the most important part to someone's offense, just slightly more than CMC. But overall, I mean, it seemed like every Sunday you looked up, CMC was either breaking one, scoring, like he was just doing it all. So I agree with Tim there, CMC.
My hierarchy's actually become Christian McCaffrey, CeeDee Lamb, then Tyreek Hill, but Christian McCaffrey's my guy at 1. I think with Tyreek Hill, there's a couple big moments this year where he hasn't came through that kind of like come to mind, like the Chiefs game, the big fumble that kind of flipped the game. Even though it was a pass interference on the play, there was a couple drops from him from last night's game that were kind of big, especially the one over the middle at the end of the game. I know he got kind of held on his shoulder and they called it, but he could have easily caught that and could have gone for a touchdown. That flips that game completely. But I think that CeeDee Lamb was a little bit more of a clutch receiver this year, which is why I'd probably lean him second. But Christian McCaffrey 100% makes sense. Defensive Rookie of the Year for you guys, who do you have?
I have Will Anderson.
Yep. Kyle, do you have a Defensive Rookie of the
Carr,
Year?
Actually, he seemed to be popping off the screen a lot more the first 8 to 10 weeks of the season. Sounds like a 2008 Verizon default ringtone right there. Is what that sounds like.
No, I had to I'm getting to my photos so I could see like what we had in comparison, and then it just brought up like a collage of me in 2021. So it just has the cool music in the background. I was like, God, dope. But anyways, get back to your award. With my Verizon ringtone on the Motorola
Razr. It was
Razr.
Jalen Carter for me.
Okay, mine was Will Anderson. I thought, especially at the way he performed towards the end of the season, I think he was really starting to become one of the best players on that defense. He's finally getting home. He was a lot of pressures this year, but he was finally getting home. So, and your guys' coach of hold on. Honorable mention, go on.
Honorable mention to
go on.
Devon Witherspoon. He was playing really, really well for the Seahawks. He's trying to bring in physicality to it, so I really liked that from a corner.
Yeah, absolutely. He definitely deserves consideration. He was playing a lot of good football throughout the year. I almost skipped Offensive Rookie of the Year. Who do you have, Timmy?
I actually really was thinking about this today, and I was thinking Puka, but you can't not give it to C.J. Stroud, so I have C.J. Stroud. But Puka breaking the rookie record, he just had a historic season, especially for such a late round pick to do that is pretty incredible. But I think the way CJ played got them to the playoffs. You got to give it to CJ.
Absolutely, yeah. Puka in any other year, Puka is probably the most deserving. But yeah, CJ Stroud. At one time, we were asking, is he at least an MVP talk? So you got to by default give it to CJ here. But Puka is definitely very much deserving as well.
I actually have Rookie of the Year, Offensive Rookie of the Years between CJ and Puka. I think they should give it to both of them. If I'm personally honest here. I think with Puka breaking the receptions and yardage records, as a guy who really kept the season afloat, like he was just as not just as important as CJ, obviously, but he was a very important part. Cooper Kupp went down. The Rams were winning some games in the beginning of the season because Puka was going nuts. He was actually, and then now, if the Rams didn't have Puka and if they just had DeMarcus Robinson as their number 2, we wouldn't be thinking of them the same way as we are now. Like the fact that they have that 1-2, our top 3 wide receiver duo in the league right now, top 3 to 5, is making them a real chance contender. So I think it should be Coach.
It's actually,
personally. But if they gave it to one, if I chose one, I guess I'd choose CJ, but I think it should be Coach. Sorry.
It's actually crazy to think that Matthew Stafford has supported like 3 of the most memorable wide receiver seasons in the last 15 years with Calvin Johnson, Cooper Kupp, and now Puka going insane this year. So pretty crazy that he was the quarterback for all 3 of those.
True story.
Yeah. Absolutely, because Cooper's was crazy. Calvin Johnson's was crazy as well. Coach of the Year, who do you guys have?
Coach of the Year, I'm going with Kevin Stefanski. You roll through 4 different quarterbacks before you finally find the one, and it's an aging Joe Flacco that they picked up off the couch and makes him look like better than he was in Baltimore, low-key. So I'm really intrigued on how this team operates in the playoffs, and yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to steal from Keenan and give it Cole, because in general, it'd probably be Stefanski. I think he did the best coaching job. But DeMeco Ryans leading the Texans team who nobody had in the playoffs. So I'll give it to both him and Stefanski. But I think Stefanski did the best job. Like Tim said, 5 quarterbacks. Was it 5 total in the end? Because it was Walker, DTR, Deshaun, Flacco.
DTR.
I think that was it. So yeah, Deshaun. 4.
Eventually they
started Driscoll yesterday.
This week, but obviously they were benching.
So to go 4 and still be, right in the thick of things in the division and still someone nobody wants to play. Nobody wants to play Cleveland right now. So yeah, no, Stefanski did an incredible job.
And they lost Nick Chubb
like week
Absolutely. 3. one of the best pure running backs of the league. They lose
probably
him.
their best offensive player. They lose him,
So.
lose their starting QB. Yeah, no, they did. It's amazing that they're where they are because most teams would have just folded.
I have no objections to that. Mine is just DeMeco Ryans by himself, though. Reason being is before the season, I was a guy who was high on the Texans and had them at like 6-7 wins. I was one of the guys that were higher on them because I thought they were going to have a good defense. I thought that CJ was going to be decent. Thought that he could be good enough. Didn't really know with him. He's obviously way past everyone's expectations. But with the Browns, if the Browns made the playoffs this year before the season, it would have made sense. Obviously, the quarterback, that's when we thought Deshaun might be fine and the Nick Chubb's there and everything like that. So Kevin Stefanski did an amazing job. But the fact that the Texans did win the division, they got to 10-7. They big plays, big coaching, and 2 of the games were without C.J. Stroud. They were able to sneak out a win without C.J. Stroud, which obviously kept them alive for the playoffs and alive for the division as well. I edge it to DeMeco, slight hair. If Stefanski won it, no objections. We're fine with that. So either or, but I got DeMeco. If I had to pick one, I think a slightly better job. Or same job, but I choose him. And then lackluster. Who's your guys' MVP?
I'm going to go with the minus 20,000 favorite Lamar Jackson. You take away Mark Andrews, and they kept on chugging. Like they lose Keaton Mitchell. They just keep on going. It really does show that Lamar, J.K. Dobbins early, they lose him. It just shows that with Lamar, this team can put up 50 on anybody, and that's crazy to think that, they got a real shot at the Super Bowl just because of Lamar. And then obviously their defense is playing unreal. So.
Yeah, I mean, this game,
Kyle, how about you?
This award was up in the air 15 weeks through the season. And then in weeks 16 and 17, Lamar truly went and took it. So, yeah, it's Lamar's. Lamar's got the MVP for sure.
Quickly, before I get into I'm just going to say Lamar first. It's Lamar Jackson. It was Lamar Jackson after the 49ers game, and then he just solidified it after being called not quarterbacky. He just solidified it. So, but I did want to say quickly, congratulations to Michigan finally getting that championship there, 34-13 win over Washington. I now like a 95% think that Jim Harbaugh is going back to the NFL. I think he did exactly what he went to Michigan to do, which was to capture a national championship. He's officially done that. Contractually, it's perfect timing. It's the perfect storm for him to go back, and there's a lot of job opportunities I think that are going to be open for him. So, and a little thing as a college football coach, you have a leg up on everybody, especially when you're a really good coach. You have a leg up because you now have you're the best scout. You had to scout all these guys, and you're recruiting some of these other guys. So you already know what's coming in for the next 4 years. You kind of understand the market already. So draft wise, whatever team he goes to should be really good. Plus, he's a very good coach. We saw what he did in San Fran. We just barely saw what he did with the Michigan squad there. So, congratulations to Michigan, but that was
I mean, I think it's 100% he's coming. Oh, I was just responding
Kyle.
to Harbaugh. I think it's 100% he's coming to the league because he hired a week or two ago. So, I think it's a foregone conclusion. Win or lose, he's coming to the league.
Part of me thinks that he's hiring the agent to test the waters and see what money they can give him, because Michigan offered him this pretty lucrative deal, and the only deal with the deal was it's like a 10-year deal, but he has to stay in college football for at least 1 more year, and then he can leave at any point. Doesn't have to, and they guarantee him a ton of money. So if Michigan's willing to pay him more than the NFL, I could see him going back, trying to repeat, and really come out as the number 1 candidate for coaching jobs.
Interesting. So Kyle, you have our Week 12
Wait.
predictions that we had towards the end of the season. Did you want to? Oh, Timmy has a
We
finger
never
up.
covered the Comeback Player of the Year award. This is the most important one, in my opinion.
Oh, we did. We didn't discover the Comeback Player of the Year award. Okay, sorry, Tim. What is it? Who is your Comeback Player of the Year?
My Comeback Player of the Year is Joe Flacco. Sorry, I apologize to DeMar. I get it. You know, he died and now he came back to life to play football again. But did he really? I actually just looked it up. Can you guess how many snaps he played this year?
He said, "Did he really?"
17.
6.
Are you a football player if you really only played 17 snaps? Like, I get it. He died. But, like, I'm giving it to Joe Flacco. It's a better story to give it to DeMar, but Joe Flacco is the real player here. He's really made an impact on his team. That's what Comeback Player of the Year is for somebody who got injured or maybe got out of it, and then when they came back, they made an impact. DeMar hasn't made an impact. He never made an impact. You know what his biggest impact was? He was the 12th man on the field during the Broncos game that cost him the game. That's the biggest impact he made this year. My apologies to DeMar.
That was great.
Kyle,
First
Kyle,
off, let me just say,
go.
I think, I don't know. I don't know this, but I think DeMar Hamlin will win it just off of, like, you know, what happened and everything. As Tim said, he died and came back to life. But complete agreement with Tim. I think it's got to be Joey Flacco. We did not. I mean, look, the first week he came back, I'm like, we get to bet against Joe Flacco. Like, he's coming off the couch after basically a season, because I think he did start at the beginning of last season. That's the game, like, or he didn't start necessarily, but he came in for Zach Wilson, led a 14-point comeback in 2 minutes, like the most chaotic game of the year. Yeah.
He was the best Jets quarterback last year.
Joins them in what, week 10, week 11, week 12 even, and just picks up the offense. That's incredibly hard and was a factor. Like, has legitimate chemistry with Njoku, has legitimate chemistry with Amari Cooper, has us believing he could at least low-key make a Super Bowl run. Like, that's insane. That's fucking insane. I never would have expected it. Joe Flacco looked wash 4 years ago. That Jets game aside, he looked wash in Denver. He looked wash at the end of his Baltimore run. I feel like there was one team in between the Jets and Denver and all that, but each stop, I think Philly, he was there for a little bit. Each stop, he looked washed. Like, he just was hanging on, like Big Ben. But, hey, his arm's still there. Yeah, complete agreement with Tim. I think DeMar's going to win it, but if there's someone who actually took the field this year that deserves it, it's Joey Flacco.
Joe Flacco should be the Comeback Player of the Year, and it really shouldn't be close. I completely understand the sentiment behind DeMar Hamlin because, again, he passed away on the field. They revived him. He is now healthy. He is great. I'm glad that he's on the sideline. I'm hopeful that he remains healthy, and hopefully he can get back to playing football on a consistent level. But, again, he did play only 17 snaps this season. So he wasn't really a player. He was just a comeback. He was a guy, like, I'm just glad he came back to life. Like, he wasn't a comeback NFL player this season. So Joe Flacco legitimately wasn't doing anything. And then we now believe that they're probably the second or third favorites in the Super Bowl. In the AFC.
Yeah. I mean, they're probably like fourth or fifth now if you gave it the odds, but I have more belief in the Browns than some teams.
No, I just meant, like, if we're talking right now to go to the Super Bowl in the AFC, it would be the Ravens, the Bills, the Browns.
Oh, I thought you said odds, because
I didn't mean odds. I didn't mean anything. I just meant if you're gonna,
because the Chiefs would probably be ahead of them. But yeah, I mean,
no, if I said it wrong, I might have said it. But Ravens, Bills, Browns, or Ravens, Browns, Bills. Some people have the Browns above the Bills, but they're a top 3 team to get out of the AFC, in my opinion. So he has them there. With DTR,
I'll say. I mean, DTR looked okay, to be fair, before he left. But let me just say, for DeMar Hamlin, to be fair to him, I wasn't even sure he'd ever play in the NFL again. So for him to go from that to 17 snaps, it is pretty deserving. But in the spirit of the award, it's definitely Flacco. But in general, in the most literal sense, like I said, like I'm very surprised he played at all this year. Like if you would have told me he came back around, the time Joe Flacco came in, like week 12, if you told me DeMar Hamlin came back in week 12 and then played, I would have believed that more because he played early on in the season. So yes, it's not much. He doesn't really have an impact on his team. That's correct. But I mean, that's a miracle story and definitely is deserving of the award. So I'll say that. But yeah, I think Flacco should get some sort of award or something.
Oh, he absolutely.
Maybe he's got to get the Super Bowl.
It makes 100% sense as to why DeMar Hamlin would get it. And it makes 100% sense. And I disagree because I'm talking I'm talking literally on the field football wise. When you're talking about a guy who you were afraid he passed away, you were afraid he was never going to play again, like a Ryan Shazier situation where he actually never came back to play again. And then he actually took the field on 17 plays this year. Absolutely, he deserves it. And that's perfectly fine. But when it comes to actually playing, I would give it to Flacco. That's all I was saying. Yeah. But I don't want to make it sound like
we all made that.
It's miraculous that he was able. That he's actually able to step on the field. It's miraculous that he was able to actually take step on the field.
But yeah. Real quick before we do our week.
Okay. So, did I miss on anything 12, before we get into this?
Let's just
okay.
I just want to say because we'll go back to our original predictions. I had Hurts for MVP. I had Sean Payton or Mike Tomlin winning Coach of the Year. I had Bijan Robinson for Rookie of the Year, offensive. Defensive Rookie of the Year, I had Christian Gonzalez. Comeback Player of the Year, I had DeMar Hamlin. And Defensive Player of the Year, I had Micah Parsons. And then Offensive Player of the Year, I had Travis Kelce.
I'll read through. Timmy, do you want me to read through yours too and then read mine, or do you have yours?
If you could read them, that would be great.
All right. So Timmy had Defensive Rookie of the Year as Jalen Carter, Offensive Rookie of the Year of Bijan, Defensive Player of the Year Micah Parsons, Offensive Player of the Year Tyreek Hill, Coach of the Year Robert Saleh, MVP Joe Burrow. Me, I had Will Anderson, Defensive Rookie of the Year. I had Bijan, Offensive Rookie of the Year. I had Sauce Gardner, Defensive Player of the Year. I had Amon-Ra St. Brown, Offensive Player of the Year. I had Zach Taylor as Coach of the Year. I had Joe Burrow as my MVP. So, looks like I possibly got one right. Looks like Kyle... I mean, we all got comeback player. I mean, I had DeMar Hamlin as comeback player of the year because it made sense for everything. But Timmy might have gotten defensive rookie of the year right in Jalen Carter, and then possibly offensive player in Tyreek Hill. But other than that, we are a little off.
I thought y'all had different comeback player of the year before, but maybe not. Maybe not. I got my three.
I don't remember who my comeback player of the year would have been.
I got my 3 bold predictions right here. Obviously, none of them came true. One of them maybe almost. No, probably not. But I had Lamar 600 yards from scrimmage in a game. I don't know how close he got. I'm sure maybe like 450 was like close to it maybe. I had a Micah Parsons 8 sacks game. That obviously did not happen. You know, these are bold predictions, not just predictions outright. And then I had
Khalil Mack had like a 6 or 7 sack game, so that was close. A player did that, but
indeed. And then I had one bench clearing brawl. That unfortunately did not happen. So I'm disappointed about that. But maybe next year. There's always next year. And there's still the postseason. Maybe we get one on Wild Card Weekend.
There very much is the postseason. I don't see my bold predictions for some reason. I guess I didn't write them down. What a loser I am.
I remember.
But I guess I didn't see them.
I remember one of mine was that Caleb Williams was going to recommit to USC. So far, he has not committed to the draft. He has not declared. But he did he sat in their bowl game. So he's pretty much going to declare. But it's not official yet. And then I also obviously had the
Okay.
Colts eliminating 3 teams.
That was
And
your
they
week.
did eliminate the
That was
Bengals.
your week 12 predictions.
Oh, was that not this one? I thought I made that for the end of the season from week 12.
Yeah, we did them at the beginning of the season too.
No, we're talking about your, like, preseason pick.
Preseason. I had Derrick Henry fails to rush for 1K yards. I remember that. And he got over. He's up to like 1,100. So that's the one I really remember. But
Man, I don't remember my bold predictions. They're getting old. What a loser I am.
I got everything in the notes app.
What a loser. No, I knew I usually have it written down on paper because I'm just such a paper and pencil guy. And I can't seem to find it, which is so unfortunate.
I was gonna call you old for that, and then the cough you had after reinforced my idea. You sounded mad old when you coughed for some reason.
No, I really did sound old. I don't know what's going on with me over these last 30 seconds. But yeah, man, that was really old of me. I'm such a garbage human, man. Okay.
All right, so we want to move on to week 12. Keenan might just die. Like, we've been joking about it.
if the power goes out, he's done.
Yeah, like he just won't know when to breathe. It's gonna be bad. It's gonna be bad. Hopefully Dan's right there on standby.
Someone help me.
Do we want to go into our week 12 predictions and see how we matched up like we did after week 6 and week 12? All right, I'll start with Tim because he already alluded to him.
Yes.
Tim said that Jalen Hurts was going to end the season. This is after week 12, going into week 13. We made these predictions for after week 18. Tim said Jalen Hurts would be the MVP. He said the Chiefs would be the 1 seed. He said the Texans would miss the playoffs and that the Colts would beat the Steelers and eliminate them, beat the Falcons and eliminate them, essentially, and then beat the Texans in week 18 and eliminate them. Tim went back on the Texans-Colts one at least last week, so he ended up being right in the short term. Keenan, your predictions after week 12 was Dak would win MVP, that the Browns and the Bills would fall out of the playoff picture, and that the Broncos, Texans, and Steelers would get in. The Ravens would get the 1 seed. You were correct about that. And you also said for a bonus one that Aaron Rodgers would return.
Yeah, I was so hopeful in that one. No, I was so hopeful. I mean, he technically could have came back. He just decided to sit out. But I thought the Browns and Bills were gonna fall out, and then the Browns got Joe Flacco, so that changed my mind. And then the Bills were close. And then they ended up becoming the 2 seed. But yeah, they were a game away and a Jags loss away from not. But yeah, shout out to the Bills for getting the division. Good for them.
Yeah, so I said that the Broncos and Bills would be the last 2 playoff spots in the AFC. Turned out to be only the Bills. And then I guess only had one other one, which was that Christian McCaffrey would win MVP. Obviously, that's not going to be the case. I feel like I would have had 3, but that's what I have written down, which is interesting. Let me go.
No, there are some times where you just decide to only go with a couple, and then you listen to the field. I don't know, really. It's like a thing.
I feel like I usually have 3 for bold predictions, like always.
You typically do, because you like 3 or 5 are typically your 2 numbers that you like to go with. But
brevity. Yeah. Let me see. Let me go back to week 12 and see if I have it written down.
So preseason wise to now, we had our preseason predictions, we had our records and everything. Which team was the most surprising team for you this year?
Oh, wait. Time out.
And if you want a list of 2 or 3. Sorry.
I found a couple of my predictions. Or was this? This might have been my old one. Never mind. Nope. No. Yeah, all right. Never mind. I think that was my old one. I had one that said there will be a serious injury that affects the playoff picture by week 13. But I think that was my prediction coming out of week 6. Because it also says Falcons turn to Heineke, and that must have been an early one. That wouldn't have been week 12. So, yeah, I guess I only gave 2.
Yeah. Okay. So biggest surprise team for you guys this year, Timmy, you can start.
I have 3.
And you can go both ways.
Yeah, based on record, I'm just going to focus on teams that outperformed what I expected them to do. The 3 teams are the Buccaneers, the Colts, and the Texans. All 3 of those teams were playoff team or fringe playoff teams. They at least all had a shot in Week 18 to make it to the playoffs. I predicted a combined 6 wins between all 3 of those teams, so they really did outperform what I was expecting. So.
Oh man, you're a hilarious guy. Wait, also, hold on. No, you had the AFC East
Loaded.
having everybody
like
with a winning
wins.
record.
No, I had the Patriots at 5-12, but I had
you had the Patriots
10 or better win teams in the AFC East. We got 2 of them.
You had the AFC East loaded. Yeah, the AFC East loaded. That's right. All right, Kyle, do you have a biggest surprise team for this year in the NFL?
Yeah, I mean,
a couple of them you can go with.
I think everyone would have the Texans there. The Colts too as well. I expected less out of the Colts. I expected less out of the Bucs. So I mean, it'd be similar to Tim. I think overall everyone surprises the Texans, I would say. Steelers surprised me. And honestly, I mean, if you're going by my preseason predictions, I had a very competitive league all around. Like I didn't really have a team that stuck out. Like I think my highest wins might have been 12 with the Eagles, and like even the Cowboys I had at 11. I had a few teams at 11. I think I even had the Niners at 11, but
the Chargers at 12.
I got the Chargers at 11 actually. I only know that just because I looked like.
I thought you had them at.
It was.
Oh, I thought you had him at 12, and that's why he was your coach of the year. But I could have been wrong.
Me having Staley as coach of the year, and then getting fired. I got one of those right at least. He was DOA. Yeah, man, there was a lot of surprises. I mean, the Chiefs were kind of surprising, even though I think I had them in that boat. I had them struggling this year, but yeah, I had a much more competitive league, and overall, it kind of was still a competitive league. But I did not expect the Niners to run away with this season the way they did, and certainly the Ravens. But overall, I would say the biggest surprise would be the Texans.
To me, I think the Texans have to be there, and tied with them would be the Rams. Sure. I did not think the Rams would be. If we would have told me week before the season started that we're talking about the Rams as a dark horse to get to the Super Bowl, I thought you were crazy. So I had them 7-10, and that was like me giving them a couple wins of just them having a Matthew Stafford and Sean McVay. They would have not shocked me if they went 5-12 this year, and it started that way. They started like they looked like they were going to be a 6-11 team, and credit to them, Matthew Stafford became a top 5 quarterback playing wise, and they turned it around, and they're as live as anybody in the NFC to go get to the Super Bowl. So shout out to the Rams, and obviously the Texans were a surprise to me. I meant 6 wins. I wanted to put them at more, but I ended up having them at 6 wins, and so they won the division.
What do you mean you wanted to have them at more?
If you remember before when we were talking about in the predictions, I was like, I want to believe more in this team. I really liked what they had defensively. I thought they had a lot of pieces defensively, and with D'Amico Ryan going there as a defensive guy, I thought that they were going to be a very good team defensively, but I didn't know what they were good to very good-ish, but I didn't know what they were going to be offensively, so I wasn't able to give them the wins that I thought I could. There was a couple games that was back and forth, because I go through and mark every single game. There was a couple games that were back and forth, and I was like, I don't know if they have the offense to get through this game, and they ended up doing it, so it was a team that I would have loved to have just gone out on that kind of limb more so and put them at 8-9-ish, but I ended up with 6-11.
Okay, word.
Oh man!
I was just looking at my the teams who I had in the.
Is there any other point you guys?
Yeah, I was just saying. I was looking at my teams that I had in the playoffs prior.
Oh, you're looking for your.
Had some hits. Obviously, had some misses too. I do have a couple of cool stats for you guys. One being This is the 34th consecutive year, every season since playoff expansion went to 12 games in the 1990 season, that at least 4 teams were new playoff teams. So each year since 1990, you get 4 new teams in the NFL. That's extreme parity. That's insane.
It's because everything changes so much year to year. So, like, next year, there are going to be 4 new teams. I mean, honestly, you can almost semi-predict some of them, like, kind of. Like, the Bengals didn't make it this year. You would assume they'd make it next year. That would technically count as one. You never know with the Jags. Possibly they turn up. That could be another one. I mean, then there's always teams that we don't expect. There's a team or two that, like, shock you. The Bears could be a team that could shock you. If the Vikings find out a couple more pieces, they could be a team that gets up there. The Jets, if they do find the answer quarterback, and maybe it's Aaron Rodgers. Like, there's so many teams that possibly could sneak their way into the playoff picture that weren't there this year. So it's not shocking, but it is shocking at the same time. Like, it's just such a weird thing, but at the same, when you look at this league, you're like, oh, okay, I get how there could be 4 other teams. I mean, the Colts almost made it this year too, so you could see how there's other teams, but that's a fun
I would say, if you would have told me maybe 16 years in a row, I could see that. But the fact that, literally since 1990, you can book that 4 teams are going to be out, that's pretty insane to me. I never would have guessed that.
Yeah. The length of it's definitely surprising. I see it more in today's NFL, but you would think with how many teams were like kind of almost set in stone for really good teams in like the early 2000s, mid 2000s, you would have expected less of that. So you're right.
Another interesting stat. This one is specific to Pro Football Focus, but just to keep in mind for this weekend's games, Dak Prescott versus teams that are picking in the top 10 of the NFL draft this year, his Pro Football Focus passing grade is a 92. Against playoff teams, it's 73. Substantially different.
How is that? Do you know what the stats are for Tua? Because I know he's very similar in that category.
I don't. I just happened to stumble upon that stat today on Twitter. Thought it was interesting and, copied the link. The one I did hear about Tua today, though, was his 4th quarter EPA. I'm not going to get all the names right, but he was grouped with, it was him, I believe Baker Mayfield, but the other guys were like Mac Jones, Zach Wilson, guys you don't want to be grouped with. It was like all guys who either lost their job or are unquestionably among the worst in the NFL, and Tua. So Baker might have been in there, he might not have been, but for sure it was Tua and Zach Wilson and Mac Jones. Those 3 I can give you for sure.
AFC East?
Yeah, I guess so, right? Elite QB category right there. And I also want to say, my
elite. Did you have any other stats?
But very interesting. I kind of mentioned it earlier. The least turnover I've seen in a long time for Black Monday. Like, it was literally just Arthur Smith and Ron Rivera, and we got Arthur Smith last night after the Sunday night game. All kinds of news yesterday. Everyone's saying it's Belichick's last game. Like, that was like the biggest story of Sunday aside from the clinching games. And then today he actually answers questions to the media, says he would love to come back, said he would relinquish power, basically put all the power in Kraft's hands to trade him, fire him, or bring him back. So I thought that was very interesting. Just shows you how much the media, at least in the case of New England, does not know anything, because everybody was reporting him gone. There was going to be a split, and he comes out this morning and basically says the opposite and puts it all in Kraft. So that's something to watch, obviously, as Patriots fans going forward this offseason. We'll probably know more in a couple days after they meet, but I thought that was very interesting that he was actually truthful and honest with the media as far as his contract goes and as far as the situation goes. So I thought that was interesting.
I don't know how much confidence I have in him relinquishing his duties, but I do like that.
Well, he said it in the media.
We're open about everything.
That's something Belichick wouldn't even give you in the past.
Yeah, but
I feel like that's a really hard thing.
I just can't see it.
It's really hard from a team perspective to deal with that, because if he does whatever he gives up from powers when he says relinquish powers like that, it's hard to like get the players to buy into the new coach that's leading you while Bill Belichick is still there. Like if he was to remain the defensive coordinator and somebody else came in to do the offensive scheme and even head coach it, it would just be a really hard time. With
Well, I
Bill
think he meant.
So I don't know how well.
I think he meant more so as
like GM.
I think he meant relinquishing like GM abilities and staying head coach.
If that's the case, yeah, I would agree that most of his GM moves are not, definitely not offensive minded. They don't seem like it sounds like Ezekiel Elliott was like one of his best signings in recent years, and he hasn't even had that great of a season. So
I'm gonna be interesting. It's gonna be interesting to see if that does hold true if he does stay, and how much confidence your next general manager has, or how the need he feels to run by Bill Belichick. It'd be like going into managing a store or managing a place where the manager is now the assistant manager and has been there for 30 years. So you already have a system in place. And you still have that guy who has the system in place, but you're trying to implement your own system. And it's like, oh, that's not how Bill did it, but then Bill's still there. So it'll be interesting it's kind of a weird situation. I don't fully know how it's going to go. I'm just going to sit back, let it play out, and then react to it.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely interesting. I mean, I've kind of mentioned it on here before. It seems like, obviously I don't fucking work for the organization or anything, but they've always had GMs in title, you know? I think where it's different with Bill is they've given him more autonomy. Like he definitely, I mean, all coaches have power to like cut, release players, but he's had a little more say in staff than you would, maybe a little more. I don't know. I really don't know what. I mean, we've never really gotten clarity on what it is that Bill has more of. But I mean, Nick Caserio was the de facto GM during the second dynasty run. So yeah, it's very interesting. It should be tons of fodder for Boston media and such. But I don't know. I'm hoping that quiets down before it gets loud again.
Yeah, I'm not, to be honest with you. I'll worry about the Bears saga, the Patriots saga, all that stuff February 10th. Don't care about it right now, personally. I want to fast forward to Thursday because I want to give these predictions and everything out, and then just fast forward to Saturday. Like I'm that excited for the NFL playoffs right now. And I'm really excited to see who both your guys' Super Bowl representatives are, who your Super Bowl champion is. Shout out Brandon Petty, who his Super Bowl champion is, and his representatives. So I'm really, really interested to see where you guys are going to go with this, because I have an idea. I kind of have an idea for the both of you where I kind of obviously think ahead, but I don't know. So I have an idea where both of you are going to go, but I don't know.
True story. No, I can't wait.
Is there any other topics, comic concerns that anybody has on the day, or are we good to get out of here? Sign off.
I would just say to the both of you, if you didn't know, Keenan, we were doing this before there was a podcast, but 3 bowl predictions, add that to your predictions list for Thursday. And that's it. Yeah. If you guys want to do Super Bowl MVP, if you want to add that, whatever, but brackets, teams, all that. I can't wait. It's probably one of our most fun shows of the year is our NFL postseason predictions show. So yeah, I'm ready for Thursday. Sounds like y'all is ready too.
The prediction shows typically are.
For sure. I can't wait. Listen, This was the Warner Brothas Podcast. This was Kyle. This was Keenan. This was Tim Gray. We will be back Thursday, as we said, with all the predictions, all the banter. It's going to be a fun show. Y'all are going to love it. Any parting words, fellas? Are you all good? Listen, catch the Warner Brothas Podcast on YouTube, on TikTok, on Instagram. Catch me and Keenan on Live Take, debating the NFL playoffs as well. We'll see you Thursday.